Hello and welcome to the boss guide for Echo of Varshan. If you played Diablo 4's first season, the Season of a Malignant, this fight may already be familiar to you, but it's pretty understandable if you gave Season of a Malignant a pass and have never encountered Varshan before. While this is an endgame boss, it's not restricted to World Tier 4. You can do battle with Varshan in either World Tier 3, where you kind of fight the baby version, or World Tier 4, where you fight the full version. Now, before I get into things, a quick reminder that I'm going to be covering all of the endgame bosses, at least those that can be used to target farm uniques in Diablo 4. So be sure to get subscribed, leave a like while you're down there, and check the description for related videos. Starting with number 1, what you need to fight him. And that's pretty simple. Complete Whispers of the Dead or encounter malignant monsters randomly throughout the world, such as afterworld bosses or when completing dungeons. If you do, you'll get his summoning materials, the Gurgling Head, the Trembling Hand, the Blackened Femur, and, exclusively in World Tier 4, the Malignant Heart. To do battle with the World Tier 3 version, you need a Gurgling Head, Trembling Hand, and Blackened Femur. You need all of those, plus the Heart, in World Tier 4. If you happen to get way too much of one material and not enough of another, you can convert them over at the Alchemist. However, I generally don't advise doing this unless you're having a really bad luck streak. I found that initially my results were uneven. I was lacking one thing, I had too much of another, but over time it evened out. After collecting the materials, then head over to the Tree of Whispers and enter the Malignant Burrow right beneath the tree. And around here, we love easy to find, so full marks to Varshan for that. Once you enter the Varshan encounter, he'll begin to attack you. He lashes out with his tentacles while firing putrid projectiles, or maybe they're his intestines. Honestly, it's a little bit difficult to tell. Luckily, regardless of what it is, this ability doesn't hit particularly hard. If you really want to do so, you can avoid it by using Evade or a movement skill to get behind the boss. A mechanic that you probably do want to avoid unless you're quite geared though, is his Floor Dance, where he starts to light up the floor in one of two patterns. The areas will highlight pink and then explode after a short delay, dealing significant damage. Move out of the pink areas and follow the pattern to avoid damage. Because the boss uses two different patterns, there's two different ways to dodge. One kind of goes around in a circle and is very easy to avoid. The other kind of has a spiral or almost pinwheel pattern, and personally I find this one to be much more challenging. I'll often get hit once by mistake. If you think you're going to get hit, pop a defensive skill, and there's a decent chance you're going to survive it, especially if you're level 100. Varshan's other main mechanic involves summoning 3 malignant minions, after which Varshan will attempt to absorb their power. You'll see a kind of brown channeling beam targeting one of the minions. That's the one that you need to kill. He'll then channel on a different minion, which you kill, and channel on the third minion. If you have high enough DPS, then feel free to kill all 3 at once, regardless of which one he's targeting. However, should you fail, and should his channel complete, he gains different abilities based on the minions he absorbs. For example, he can inflict daze on you, which is especially problematic because when you're dazed, you can't attack, therefore you can't deal damage to him, and you can't use abilities to heal yourself. Also, sometimes he'll gain and refresh his barrier, which of course gives him a lot of extra health, making the fight more difficult. And last but not least, sometimes his attacks will inflict poison. I've also occasionally seen him drain resources, which can be quite annoying, but may not be a problem depending on your build. He'll gain several buffs depending on the exact minion he absorbs. These are just a few examples, and in general, if you're unable to kill the minions before he completes his channel, then that's probably a sign you're not quite ready for the fight. However, because this fight is very simple, he just repeats the 2 mechanics over and over again, it's also pretty darn easy to master. So assuming that you meet the DPS check, that's about all there is to it. There's no real strategy aside of dodge the stuff on the ground and kill the ads, which I think I've kind of already covered. So just enjoy this footage of the fight. But of course, after you fight the boss, comes the more important part, looting the boss. And like with the other endgame bosses in Diablo 4, you're able to farm several unique items from the Echo of Varshan. Here are the items currently available, and if you want a quick, handy reference sheet to go back to this, then I'll link to the boss cheat sheet over at MaxwellGG down in the description below. Since Whispers were pretty much a natural part of leveling up, be it through the early parts of the game or using the Vampire Zone, I found that I got a lot of materials to fight Echo of Varshan fairly early on. So I made the incredibly terrible decision of going into the World Tier 4 version at level 62 pretty much as soon as I could get there. Unsurprisingly, this didn't go well for me. So then I went back maybe 20 levels later, and in comparison I was able to absolutely annihilate the boss. I guess this was a little bit of a lesson to me to not go in undergeared, make sure to check myself before I wreck myself, and overall, because the boss has fairly simple mechanics, once you get it down, you really do get it down, and it's not too bad after that. Remember, while you can exchange different materials of the Alchemist, including using the malignant hearts to target any of the others, I don't advise doing it unless you're really in a bind. Because if you have 8 heads and 7 hands and 6 femurs, you're probably going to even out over time, and you might as well just keep the extra heads and hands, rather than gambling at converting them and wasting materials that you could use for other things. But then again, if you have 8 hands, 7 heads, and 0 femurs, then maybe it's time to start using a couple if you need something from the boss and really want to get to target farming. Since there's always Whispers up in the world, and it's quite easy to complete them while doing other content, the Echo of Varshan is one of the most accessible bosses. And of course, if you want a refresher on any of this or more, then I'll link to a full boss guide for Echo of Varshan over at MaxwellGG. On the other hand, if you're looking to learn other mechanics, then check out some of my boss guides that will be linked up in the card and down in the description below on bosses such as Lord Zir, the Dark Master, or the Beast in Ice. Those bosses are a little bit more complicated. Lord Zir has a lot of adds and there's quite a bit going on. The Beast in Ice has several phases, but in the videos I break down both in a way that I hope is accessible. And so, good luck with your farming. And I'm curious, what else do you want to know about Diablo 4? Are you curious about builds? Maybe you want dedicated guides to pieces of content. Or maybe you're curious about something else. Leave some of those thoughts down below and get subscribed because you might see that in a future video. But that's all for today, and before I go, a special thanks to my patrons and channel members for the continued support. For as low as $1 a month, you can help make videos just like this one possible. With that said, thanks for watching, I hope you learned something, and I'll see you again sometime soon.